Welcome to another episode of Conversations and Connections. We're the official podcast of the Family Crisis Center of East Texas. I'm Stuart Burson. I'm the prevention coordinator for the agency. And with us today, February, first of all, is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. And with us is our forensic nurse, Kim Riddle. Thanks, Kim. I know this is a topic that is near and dear to you.
Yes, it is. I feel like it's really important.
Yeah. And I know when we start planning our activities and planning our presentations for the month of February, I always like to get you involved in it because I know you like to do these presentations as well, if you can make it. Of course, I know your schedule is extremely busy. Before we talk about teen dating violence, Kim, what I want to do, and I know we've probably talked about this before, I want you to just talk a little bit about your role as a forensic nurse. What does that mean? And I do want to say that you just don't do your services for the Family Crisis Center. You also, we share you with Harold's House. But if you can, let's just talk a little bit about your duties as a forensic nurse first.
Okay. So I am the forensic nursing coordinator for our area and also our only full-time forensic nurse during the day. And so my role is really to provide care to patients who had suffered some type of violence, whether that is from child abuse, it could be intimate partner violence, teen dating violence, sexual assault. So that is really the area of focus for what I do.
Yeah. What is it about the topic of teen dating violence that really speaks to you?
I am able to provide services to adults who have been through intimate partner violence. Those victims have been through so much, and it's so traumatizing, and the violence is so great. And we know that the people who perpetrate that violence are very dangerous. They're dangerous for they are mass shooters. They're the ones who are more likely to get involved in shootouts with our law enforcement. So these people who perpetrate this violence are very dangerous. And so when we look at how did we get to this, how did this type of violence just progress? We have to look at our kids, like what is happening with our children. Our children are our future. So when we look at teen dating violence, they are exhibiting the same behaviors that we are seeing in adults.
Yeah. Well, and well, first of all, I think a lot of people probably don't think about when it comes to relationship violence. At our agency, all people are always talking about domestic violence and all of that. But I don't know how many people really think about how the part that young people and teens play in that how it can affect them as well, how they can be subjected to that, right?
Right. Well, it could be that, kids are developing relationship skills. So it's not that you're just born understanding what a relationship is. So they're learning, and they're learning as they go. And of course, they're looking to the environment to help guide them. And so if their home environment doesn't exhibit healthy relationships, then they may not really understand, like, what is a healthy relationship? And then if they talk to friends, maybe they don't really understand what is a healthy relationship. And then you look at the media, and it's not always portraying healthy relationships. So where do they get that information so that we can give them the tools that they need so that maybe they don't get involved in these unhealthy, abusive relationships as they get older?
Yeah, and I think also it's like you said, they're going to exhibit things that they see, and if they see maybe not so healthy relationship practices at home, especially a young person, they're probably going to think, well, that's how it is. That's the way it's supposed to be, and they're gonna do the same thing probably.
Right.
Um, so, um, one of the things when we talk about teen dating violence, and we're doing our presentations, it's really interesting the the enthusiasm that we get from most schools. You know, when we go to schools, first of all, February, I think there may be 2 days in February where right now, I don't have any presentation, any school that I'm not going to, right? And it does my heart good to know that a lot of these schools do want us. Hey, yes, come on. Our kids need to hear this. Please, come talk to our students. And sometimes I'll even tell them, okay, well, we're going to be talking about we're going to be talking about sexual consent. We're going to be talking about sexting. We're going to be talking about all this. Is that okay? And I think for the majority, most schools are saying, yeah, come on, because man, we need to hear. Our kids need to hear this. I just wish all schools, and I'm not here to name districts or anything, but we still get some school districts every year that are just very, I don't know what the right word is. I don't know if I should say they're very leery about us coming, or they're just very cautious about us coming. And I have had some counselors say, I know our kids need to hear this, but our parents, our community is very conservative.
Right. But we know that not coming forward and discussing things does not mean it is not happening. So you can look at the news, you can look just really all over our country and see examples of how teen dating violence is a big health concern. It can cause, it can go all the way to homicide. So we know that even teens, whenever there is a breakup, that the emotional regulation is not there. And then they have the other power and control dynamics, just like our adult relationships have. And then you have that breakup, and then you have kids that are killing kids. So we're not talking about just, simple things that, maybe they could figure these things out on their own. We're talking about relationships that have gone to the point where kids are killing each other over a relationship breakup.
Right.
And that's terrifying to me. Why are we not telling them? Like, wouldn't we tell them, don't step out in the street, you could get hit by a car, but we don't want to give them the other information that they need to keep them safe. And living in a bubble doesn't keep us safe, and it doesn't keep our kids safe. And give them the information. We know that, yes, sometimes maybe parents are busy and they're not able to really provide that information themselves. So I love that our agencies really push forward, just trying to provide education, and that we're providing it for free.
Right. In fact, it was one of the schools that I was at this week when I was setting it up. One of the things she asked me was, well, how much does this cost? What's y'all's charge? I said, well, we don't charge anything. And she was kind of surprised about that, really, and I always try to reassure them too. Look, when we talk about these topics, and sometimes it is a little embarrassing maybe for these kids to hear this. It may be a little uncomfortable, and we're not telling these kids, hey, go have all the sex you want as long as you get consent, right? But at the same time, you got to think back, okay, well, what is a 15 to 16 to 17-year-old, what are they going to want to do? And I think you need to supply them with the right information and the knowledge that they need to protect themselves, know?
Well, if you think about sexting is a huge issue.
Well,
and it's something we don't want them to do. I mean, there are legal consequences. And so we provide them with that information, that this could affect you a lot further along in life. And so not something you really want to be involved in.
Right. Well, and you know just as well as I do, there's probably not a school district that we go to where they're saying, sexting is not a problem on campus.
Right.
It's an issue. And so anyway, I try to reassure, look, we're not trying to indoctrinate these teens into a certain way of thinking or anything like that. You just have to be real with them, and you have to be upfront and, arm them with the right information. I'm happy to say, I think in all the years that I've been doing these presentations, I think at one time I had one parent call me. And thankfully it wasn't in anger. It was before I was going somewhere to do a presentation. And they were just, hey, we found out, you're coming to our kids' school. You're going to be talking to them about this. What exactly are you going to talk to them about? So I told them, what it was, and this one gentleman did say, well, really, I think all this kind of stuff should be taught at home. And that's awesome if you do it.
Right. But in the real world, it really isn't being taught at home.
That's great if you do it. And I told him, look, I'm not saying that you don't do it, but there's a lot of parents out there that do not talk to their kids about these things. When you look at teen dating violence, do you see any big differences between relationship violence amongst adults, let's say domestic violence, and teen dating violence? Or is it pretty much all the same?
So domestic violence could be anyone within that home, whereas those intimate partner relationships is going to be that you've had either a current or a former relationship with that person. Mm-hmm. So boyfriend, girlfriend, maybe they were married. And so I will say that really teen dating violence is just, it's basically looking in the mirror as for adult dating violence. Yeah. You see a lot of the same dynamics. You see a lot of the same type of physical assaults all the way to homicide. And so, other than maybe that economic control, because, kids are generally still with their parents, mm-hmm. And not being controlled that way.
Yeah.
But other than that, I would say that all the other dynamics in those relationships are the same.
Well, it's interesting that you brought that up, and always when I do the presentations, the first thing I ask these kids is, what does dating violence mean to you? And of course, 9 times out of 10, the first comment is going to be physical violence, right? But I think it's important, and this goes with just domestic violence in general, but also with teen dating violence. I want these kids to know that it's more than just the stereotypical, the girl has a black eye and she's getting, beat up by her boyfriend. Absolutely. There's so many more nuances and so many more things that it looks how it looks.
Right.
Right.
Right. You have that emotional abuse. You have physical abuse. You have sexual abuse. You have all of those things, and they're all a part of that power and control dynamic. Mm-hmm. Many times in these relationships, pretty much every time I've seen a victim, it involves that extreme jealousy. There's a lot of control, but you will see a lot of that extreme jealousy. And kids don't really understand that. I mean, to them, that seems like, well, this person really cares about me. They want to know where I'm at all the time. They want to know who I'm talking to and where I'm going because they care about me. When we know in reality that extreme jealousy is unhealthy. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to be with someone 24 hours a day, and they don't have to know where you are 24 hours a day. And right. There has to be an element of trust in those relationships in order for it to be a healthy relationship. So I feel like if they don't know that and they don't understand that, then they could take the wrong path and be confused as to what love really is or what it should be.
I like that you said that, because that's one thing that, that's, part of the presentation we do. We talk about the relationship spectrum, okay, this is what healthy behaviors generally are. This is what unhealthy behaviors generally are. And I think I still to this day surprise a lot of these young people when I say in a healthy relationship, you're going to enjoy spending time away from each other,
Right.
And I tell them, so look, I would tell a couple that's been married for 20 years the same thing.
Right.
You don't have to be together every single waking moment of the day,
Right.
And it's the same thing. We'll talk about the jealousy is, and I think this is probably a young people's thing, but this may be more an adult thing also. But, you see these young teenage couples, the girl doesn't want her boyfriend to have other friends who are girls. The guy doesn't want his girlfriend to have other friends that are guys.
Oh, we definitely see that in those adult relationships
And,
as well.
you try to tell them, look,
Right.
that is, no one should keep you from telling you who you can be friends with and who you shouldn't be friends with. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's part of that isolation that
Yeah.
we see in those relationships
Yeah.
where they are isolated from their friends and maybe isolated from their families because that abuser wants all of that attention and time for themselves.
Yeah. Well, and that goes with the same thing. I sometimes I'll ask them who's on Life 360 with their boyfriend or girlfriend. And some of them will kind of, if they don't raise their hand, they'll kind of, raise their hand up just a little bit so I can see, and it's the same thing. I tell them, look, I think Life 360 is a great tool for families, but I don't think, especially, at their age, your girlfriend or your boyfriend doesn't need to know where you are 24 hours a day.
Right. What is the purpose in that?
Yeah.
Right.
You don't need to know that.
Right.
But anyway, I can go down a rabbit hole with that whole topic. So what can parents do if they suspect, their child is involved maybe in an unhealthy relationship with a girlfriend or boyfriend? What should a parent do? Or let's even talk about these young people's friends. What should they do?
Well, we do know that these relationships can be very dangerous. So when we're talking about teens, it's really important. Don't get in the middle of those relationships. Provide that support, but they need to reach out to a trusted adult to help them. Mm-hmm. They also need to understand that when that relationship ends, that could be a very dangerous time for them, not to meet with that person alone. Always have someone there with you, and to meet in public places. For parents, I would say try to maintain that open communication with your teen. And we know that teens, they don't want to tell parents everything. And,
of course. And I remember, and look, I get it. I remember
right.
that, of course.
But it's important. It's important to talk to your kids, ask them and watch for those signs where maybe things are changing for them. Maybe they're changing how they behave or how they dress or what they like to do or where they go. And maybe they're not with their friends anymore. They're always just with that dating partner. Like, look for these different signs and know that you need to reach out to them. And, our community resources, we're great. We just live in such a great community here where we have those resources available. And all of those services that we provide are free. So, we're here to educate. We're here to help you. We provide a lot of free services. And, there is help. There is help out there.
Right. Do you think teen dating violence, I think we're so much more aware now of things going on in our society because of social media, because, we can communicate with anyone in an instant now through something like that. I guess what I want to ask is, do you think teen dating violence, has it always been with us? Do you think it's increased over the years, or are we just becoming more aware of it?
It has definitely always been there, but I do feel like, society norms kind of sway as well along that spectrum, and what we think is acceptable or not. And I believe social media has played a big role in what our kids think is normal and in unhealthy ways. So I do feel like it is a greater problem now. Social media makes it to a point where you can't really escape it. So even our victims who, with their partner or they're having problems at school, like those phones are always with them. So that abuser has that constant contact with them all the time. So even in adults, like they can be controlled just by knowing they have to answer that phone, or they're getting like 100 texts an hour, or crazy things like that.
Yeah.
So I feel like it is worse, and we know with intimate partner violence in adult, it's considered a public health concern. It's so there's so much of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's so violent.
What would you tell a parent or a school that may say, oh, this kind of thing isn't going to happen at our campus, or my kid knows better than to get involved in something like this? Because that attitude is out there. How do you approach someone with that way of thinking?
I would say you don't have to listen to us. Look at the news. Look for yourself. Do some research yourself, and it may shock you to see, how prevalent this problem really is.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I do want to say, with being teen dating violence, if you are part of if you go to church and you have a youth group and you want us to come, and that's one of the groups that I really, really, really would love to get more involved with, are these church youth groups. And I know a lot of churches may think, oh man, I don't know if we want you to come talking to our kids about this topic. But I think it's anywhere we can get a group of young people together to hear this message on what they can do to protect. This is about protecting them, and Kim, I always like to tell people, whenever I show a school my presentation, like if they want to look at it beforehand or church, I always tell people, look, we want to cater this presentation to your needs, to your group. If there's something that you really are set against us talking about, like if you don't want us to talk about sexting, okay, we don't have to, but we can talk about all these other things. Right. I guess what I'm saying is, please, please, please give us a call. Let us come talk to your kids. We're not glued to just February either. Have us come whenever is convenient for you, but we just need to make sure our youth today are educated in this topic, because it is such unfortunately, a growing concern, a growing issue.
Right, exactly.
All right. Kim Riddle, thank you so much. I probably see Kim and talk to Kim probably out of the whole year. It's February whenever I see her the most, because we'll do presentations together and things like that. So again, if you feel like you have some more questions about the topic of teen dating violence, give us a call and let us come talk to your group. Or if you just have some questions as a parent, give us a call and let us address your concerns. And as always, if you feel like you need the services, any of the services of the Family Crisis Center, we do have our toll-free number. That's 1-800-828-7233. That's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I also want you to please subscribe to Conversations and Connections. And we are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, pretty much any YouTube, anywhere where you get your podcasts, you can find us. Remember, be the voice, if not for you, for someone else.